we have a patient with a cancer in two places, which is so unusual to have a cancer occurring on the face and in the lower abdomen and nowhere else. I thought this must be coming from her teeth, but she has full dentures, and that would then be a surprise since it's not coming from tooth fillings. So I'm checking her dentures to see if they're radioactive. And you can see what I'm testing for. This is just the name of the person. I have them in a little bit of well water or any kind of water because even if the water might have some copper or lead in it from the water pipes, that's not going to disturb the test. I'm not looking for copper or lead. I'm looking for polonium, which is the radioactive element causing cancer, but it's not the only thing. The polonium is complex to cerium, cerium being a lanthanide, but radioactive things from the earth, mainly the radon series, and other things coming up from the uranium down below the earth. Those things react with each other. The lanthanides and the radioactive elements come up in the same space because they come up from the uranium rocks that are under the surface of the earth. And polonium and cerium are extremely reactive, and they react with each other immediately so that you get this little polonium-cerium complex. And you'll see that here I'm testing for polonium in this denture that's in a little bit of water in a plastic bag. And of course there are two entities there, the teeth themselves and the rest of the pink part of the denture. And I'm just soaking the whole thing to see if that might be a source of her carcinogen. There it is, very high. It's seeping polonium. And I'll look for cerium because cerium is used in dental plastic. You can find that right on the internet. It's terrible that a great deal of research on cerium was done in the first half century of the last century already. Cerium came into use, and they never did search for an effect that might be contributing to cancer, I suppose. Because I find it in every cancer case, it's part of the carcinogen causing the cancer.
Part of the complex. Yes. Part of the complex between the polonium and cerium.
Yes. The carcinogen isn't a single entity, it's a large complex. And it starts with polonium, and that is complex to cerium. Yes, we would expect, this is cerium, we would expect it to be exuding it because it's plastic. If you harden the plastic enough, it would not diffuse out, but that generally isn't done. It's only hardened for the sake of its physical durability, and instead of how much it diffuses out.
And if you were to harden it the normal way by putting it in a pan of water and cool water and letting it build up to the bubble point but not boil, would that solidify the plastic sufficient to keep the radiation from coming out?
No, but it would keep the cerium from coming out. But it would not keep the polonium from having its action.
So these dentures then must be replaced with non-polluted denture material.
Yeah. The reason this got polluted is because they were using Clorox bleach in the dental supplies, and that's what I would test next. First, let me see if the polonium diffusing out and the cerium diffusing out are already complex. It takes only seconds for that to happen, just as though it was, say, hydrogen and oxygen or sodium and chlorine. If they came in contact with each other, they would react immediately. And this goes very fast too. There's the complex, complete, ready to form the complete carcinogen. To be a complete carcinogen, you have to add the rest of the whole complex, and that comes from Clorox bleach too. The ferrocyanide would be found in the Clorox bleach. In the NSF bleach, which we always consider the good bleach or the better bleach, has ferricyanide. It's also very harmful, of course. Any cyanide that you're eating that isn't a plant material has to be detoxified by the body in a special way, which is quite a drain on the body's resources. The body needs its resources to detoxify the natural cyanide-containing food. About half of our food has cyanide molecules in it, and that's why they're called cyanogens, but they're not toxic, whereas something that's human-made is much more likely to be toxic. And certainly these cyanides that are added to the water to keep the pipes from developing scale and from corroding is very toxic. And no matter what the literature says, the literature goes back many years, and maybe it just ought to be repeated. The experiments on these cyanides, called ferricyanide and ferrocyanide, were done 100 years ago already. And they came to the conclusion that they were not very toxic. That doesn't mean enough.
But if it's in your mouth, that's a whole different story.
Yes.
And if you're a cancer patient
Yes.
that can't detoxify these
Yes,
things, then you're
exactly.
really in trouble.
Right. One of the mutations that this big carcinogen makes, besides the cancer mutations, is that no rhodanese will be made. That is one of the mutations that this mutagen, a carcinogen is a mutagen at the same time. A carcinogen that can cause cancer is also causing mutations, so that makes it a mutagen also. So here we will see whether the entity from Clorox bleach, which is ferrocyanide, this is potassium ferrocyanide, whether that is exuding from this denture and diffusing into the body. Yes, large amounts. So now you have the third item that is in the carcinogen. It forms a chain. These are the first three members. The next item is an alkylating agent derived from onions, garlic, mustard, and we have synthetic alkylating agents too that are used as chemotherapy because they are so deadly. But ordinary onions, garlic, and mustard make them too. We're not meant to eat much of that, if any. Now the literature will gloss over that and say you don't need to worry that this might be coming from the mustard you're eating or the garlic. Those things have their good attributes too, but this is much more important, and I think we should stop using those foods because we make these alkylating agents from them. And here are a few. Here's mustard. You wouldn't expect that from an inanimate thing, of course. The alkylating agent, it doesn't come from the Clorox bleach. It comes from the food you eat.
Uh-huh. Now, I was confused. Was that positive or negative? I didn't listen.
Negative.
That was negative, okay.
Here is diallosulfide that would come from onions. And you wouldn't expect that to come from a non-living thing. Here's allyl alcohol, another onion-like compound. There are very many alkylating agents coming from these three kinds of foods, and they form part of the carcinogen. It's the next part.
Uh-huh.
So
And
you
you're
have
checking.
to have that.
And you're checking an inanimate thing, the dentures, just,
Yes,
and you wouldn't normally check for that because you know it's not there because it's not a
Right.
food item.
right.
I
But
see,
for
yeah.
sake of demonstration,
Right.
that lets you use your own knowledge and logic to arrive at new research results. You would want to do a complete experiment like this.
Mhm.
Then that forms the fourth entity, and the fifth entity is another living thing that comes from the body. The contribution to this carcinogen is partly the environment and partly the body. The body supplies the alkylating agent and the parasite. In this case, the parasite should be, if it was coming from the dentures, which of course it can't, but for the sake of the experiment, I would look for the busky, and of course that would be negative.
Factiolopsis busky. So if
But
it were a
another
food item, you'd
interesting
check with
one
those things.
would be isopropyl alcohol, and another one malonic acid. We can see if that's coming from this.
Mhm.
Malonic acid is discussed quite a bit in my books because I found it in all tumors going back many years.
And malonic
Obviously
acid,
positive.
and that's used as a denture material and sometimes as a
Uh,
hardening agent even,
No,
isn't it?
it's just present in most industrial-made compounds.
Uh-huh.
Why it is there is probably because it's so universally useful in the chemistry of manufacturing various synthetic substances.
Uh-huh.
It's just about universally present.
Mhm. That's
And
malonic acid.
it does exude from these dentures. Now the malonic acid will be making its contribution on this carcinogen that is building here from these dentures, and I want to see whether the malonic acid combines here or here or here, so that we can do a kind of chemistry here. Possibly you could call it
Maybe resonant frequency.
mimicking the reality, because this is a capacitor, and you can do a mimicking experiment on this the way you can with a computer.
By the close proximity of one substance to the other on the plate.
This makes it in series.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's not where it's attached. That was negative.
Uh-huh.
That's where it is attached.
And that substance is?
Malonic acid. And it's attached to cerium.
It's attached to the cerium molecule.
Now, polonium is very, very reactive too, so we'll see whether it could combine here. Yes, so it has two places to attach, and now let's take a look at isopropyl alcohol, because we do find malonic acid and isopropyl alcohol in every tumor. So it's part of the carcinogen, but to find out just what role it plays, you would do this kind of simple mimicking chemistry.
So what we're doing here is finding what the cerium and the polonium complex are tied to molecularly.
Yes.
And the malonic acid happened to be the substance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.